Hi everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite movies of 2023. There are 13 movies that made it onto this list, so I'm going to see how quickly I can go through all of these because I've been filming nonstop today. So let's see how this goes. The first one that made it onto this list is one that I didn't think that I would enjoy because I thought it would be too triggering to me. It does contain lots of scenes of suicide, and these scenes are very graphic, so I did not think that this would be a movie that I would enjoy, and that movie is Bird Box. It's a horror movie that is post-apocalyptic. It has a really famous cast, and I love apocalyptic stuff, and it is about this mysterious monster that after you see the monster, it leads you to want to kill yourself. So it has graphic scenes of suicide, but it is a story of survival and of family in unexpected places and finding family and creating family in a world that is filled with just so much terror and terrible stuff happening. So Bird Box was the first favorite movie that I had this year. Then surprisingly, I never saw Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade all the way through. I actually, every time I tried to watch it when I was younger, I fell asleep. And so this year I finally watched Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and I loved it. I also feel like because of everything that happened with the Grail, Indiana Jones could technically keep being recast and these movies could go on forever. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is just so much fun. I love Indiana Jones. I love archaeology. And so Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is making it on the list. I took a theater class this year and I had to watch a lot of different plays for that theater class, and one of them made it onto my favorite movies list. Even though technically it's a play that was recorded, I'm going to count it as a movie. That was Shrek the Musical. Shrek the Musical is really well done. It has really catchy scenes, it is really funny, and it seemed like it was just a fantastic production. Honestly, I wish I could have seen it when I was on Broadway, but I'm glad that recordings of it exist so that I can watch it. I had to analyze it for my class, which normally when I analyze things for class, it makes me lose my joy for whatever content I'm analyzing, but that didn't happen with Shrek the Musical. It was just so freaking good. I enjoyed it so much, and it was the only play that I enjoyed for my theater class, and I was surprised, but I freaking love Shrek the Musical now. Then The Bubble made it onto this list, and this might be an unpopular opinion that I love The Bubble so much because I've told people that I like The Bubble and people have been like, no, that's not a good movie. I'm like, I don't care. I love The Bubble. It is so funny. I watched it for Karen Gillan, although it has such a famous cast, like Pedro Pascal is in there. It basically follows the cast of a movie franchise, and they're coming together during the COVID pandemic when restrictions and like safety measures were at their highest, and they're coming together to film another movie in the series. So I just found it to be really funny. I found it to be just really wild, like you could never predict what would happen next, and it was just such a lighthearted, fun movie that I absolutely love, and I will definitely be watching it again at some point in the future. The next movie that made it onto my favorites list is like slightly problematic, but I still really enjoyed it, and I'm including things on my favorite movies list that I enjoy, and I enjoyed this one. This is also the only movie that I didn't rewatch this year that made me cry. Oh, and I forgot to mention, movies that are on my favorite movies list are not stuff that I rewatched. They're stuff that I watched for the first time in 2023. So this movie is called The Impossible. The reason it's problematic is because it's based off of a family who I think was Mexican, and then they whitewashed the cast, and a little frustrating that they whitewashed the cast, but it's still a good movie. I love survival stories, I love disaster stories, and this is a tsunami story, and it has a really famous cast like Tom Holland and Ewan McGregor, and it's about this family who is on vacation. There's 3 boys in the family and there's the parents, and it's about trying to survive this tsunami and then trying to reconnect with each other after the tsunami has left them all stranded and separated from each other. It is a phenomenal movie that I highly recommend if you're into disaster stories. Then I was watching a lot of Karen Gillan movies this year, so another one of her movies made it onto my list, and that movie is Not Another Happy Ending. It's a fun rom-com, and it's about this author who gets a deal to write 2 books with his agent. However, the agent is a bit of a like grumpy snob, and she immediately doesn't like this agent, but she finally has a book deal because she kept getting so many rejections, so she has to work with this agent and get these 2 books out there and published after she's signed the contract. It is so freaking good, so freaking cute. Normally I prefer my rom-coms and books as opposed to movies, but this movie really worked for me, and I highly recommend it if you're into rom-coms or romances, or if you're into just Karen Gillan in general. This is a really good movie. Then the next movie I watched with my friend because I am a scaredy cat. I cannot watch horror movies alone, so I had to watch it with my friend, and this movie was Escape Room. I love escape rooms. I've done a couple of them. They're so much fun, and the movie Escape Room basically takes escape rooms and turns it into a like deadly fight for survival. Like, you can't survive if you don't finish these escape rooms. It was so much fun seeing the characters work out these different escape room puzzles while also having the threat of them about to lose their lives. So I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm hoping to see this second one of this movie soon. Unfortunately though, the second one isn't on any streaming services last I checked, so I don't know when I'll get around to watching the second one. Then Rampage made it onto my favorite movie of 2023 list, and I know a lot of people probably don't like Rampage, but I liked it a lot. It worked really well for me. I've discovered recently that I sort of like Godzilla and giant monsters and giant animals and stuff, and I found Rampage to be a very, very interesting and fun one. I really loved the giant creatures in here, so Rampage made it onto this list as one of my favorites. Then another horror movie that I watched with my friend because I'm a scaredy cat, and that was Fall. This is a survival story of these two girls who climb up this giant like radio tower, and they climb up to the top, and it's extremely high, and they're in the middle of a desert when the ladder falls down and they can't get down to get back to land and to save themselves. So I love this one so much. I understand why some people don't like it, but I love survival stories, so that was really interesting to me. And the wild thing about this movie is that I saw the big like plot twist. I saw that on TikTok, so I had that spoiled for me right away. However, I still found myself really enjoying this movie and getting invested in the characters, specifically the main character. And so I really liked this one, and honestly, I recommend this one if you're into survival stories. Then My Babysitter's a Vampire. I finally watched this one for the first time. Is it cringy? Yes. Is it written well? No. But am I obsessed with it? Yeah, I need to watch the TV series now. I watched a couple movies this year that seemed like to have a lot of Twilight inspiration from it, but this is the only one of the movies of Twilight inspiration that was actually really good. So there's this babysitter that comes over to babysit this guy and his younger sister, and she ends up being a vampire, but she doesn't really want to be a vampire, and she doesn't like being tied up with all of these sort of evil and bad vampires. And so there is some action that occurs trying to defeat the evil vampires. I really liked My Babysitter's a Vampire. It was a really good movie. Then I watched The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I saw twice in movie theaters in 2023. I wasn't originally going to put this one on the list because I feel like this movie has a lot of problems, but I'm low-key obsessed with it and I can't stop thinking about it, so it's going on this list. This movie is giving an origin story to President Snow, who you get to know as the main villain in the Hunger Games series. This movie also involves Hunger Games that took place way before the series with Katniss, so you get to see a different world, you get to see a different arena without as much technology, and you get to see from the point of view of someone who's a mentor, but a mentor from the Capitol, not a mentor in terms of a winner of the games. So the reason I was considering not putting this one on my favorites list is because I'm not a huge Lucy Gray fan, and I'm not a huge President Snow fan, and I felt like the pacing was a little off in some parts of the movie, but those issues I had with the movie were the same issues I had with the book. So it's more of the book's fault than the movie's fault, because the movie was a pretty faithful adaptation, in my opinion. There were some things changed, but I thought it was a pretty faithful adaptation. But yeah, I'm really obsessed with this movie and I can't stop thinking about it, and I'm watching edits of it 24/7, so that's why it's going on my favorite movies list, because even if a movie has flaws or is problematic, I'm still adding it to my favorites list if I loved it. The final two movies on this list are Studio Ghibli movies. I went on a little bit of a Studio Ghibli binge. So the first one is When Marnie Was There, which is a really underrated Studio Ghibli film. It follows this girl who goes to live with some relatives in this smaller city that's away from the bustle and congestion of town. And when she's in this city, she meets this girl named Marnie. Marnie's mysterious though, she's not there all the time. And so it's sort of trying to figure out this mystery, who is Marnie? Why is she there? But it's also a beautiful female friendship between these two girls. I love this movie so much, and it's honestly one of the best anime movies that I've ever seen. And the final one on this list is one that every time I tell people that I didn't watch it until 2023, they're always really shocked, and that's Howl's Moving Castle. I don't know why I never watched it before, but I'm obsessed with it. I love Hal so much as a character. He is just such a fantastic character. Howl's Moving Castle is a really unique and creative movie. I've never seen anything like it. It is probably my favorite Studio Ghibli film. So it's basically about this guy Hal, and he has this moving castle that has to keep moving so that no one can track him and find where he is. But meanwhile, there's this girl, Sophie, and Sophie was cursed by a witch because she had an interaction with Hal. So this witch thinks like, oh, Sophie's super connected with Hal. So she ends up running to go find Hal to try and get him to reverse this curse that was put on her to make her an old lady. So this is really fun fantasy adventure. I think you should go into it knowing as little as possible because it is a great movie that you shouldn't know that much about, so you can be surprised by everything in it. So those were all 13 movies that made it onto my favorite movies list for 2023. I hope I can watch some fun movies in 2024, and if you want to see my favorite movies list of 2022, I will link that video down in the description below. I have a lot of fun videos coming out the rest of the year, so stick around to watch those ones, and I'll see all of you next time. Until next time, goodbye.